Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Pinyari and I am so excited to host you yet again. You guys have been so amazing. I am just so overwhelmed by the love, the support, the shares, and I hope that these videos are really impactful. So hit the subscribe button and let's get started. So just recently, a gay and gay rights activist, McKenna Jerry, who's very influential, by the way, took on Instagram to change her name from McKenna Jerry, which is socially accepted as a female name, to Chris Muriithi, which is generally a male name, and also changed their pronouns to they and them. McKenna has also made a TED Talk before where she was talking about her journey into discovering what she defines as her truth. And I found this so interesting, especially right now where the conversation around gender identity, gender dysphoria, non-binary, all these interesting terms are coming up, and the idea that there's a non-binary gender identity where the binary gender identities will be male and female. However, there's a conversation and also a fight to have a fight in the sense that this is an ongoing conversation and almost a struggle to have equal rights for non-binary people, and the idea that people can identify as who they want to identify as. I can wake up today and I decide I want to identify as the president. This is the conversation that we are having, and I found it so interesting. In a different video, also a TED Talk in Parklands, McKenna also was explaining her journey into identifying who she was and finding herself, where in layman's terms, she came out of the closet and identified as a member of the gay community. And I found that very interesting and a very necessary conversation, actually, and I'm so grateful and glad that she boldly speaks about it. It's so interesting because she has actually an organization called the Bold Network. It's a gay rights activism organization. Anyway, so I think that it's a very interesting and timely conversation. And if you're in Kenya, for example, you understand that this has been a very subtle but an upcoming topic, and I'm so glad that we're bringing all these topics and these ideas to the table and up for debate. And I think that's a very good skill, and that's a very necessary step where when it's in a social setup, then you bring your ideas and your values up for negotiation. Personally, the problem I have with this kind of ideology is that I can wake up one day and decide to identify as a queen, for example, and everyone should refer to me as a queen without having to negotiate this and explain why this should be socially acceptable. Makes me feel like on the gender identity and people changing their pronouns and deciding to be identified a certain way, one day a certain way, the next day, I find it as a very boundary pushing behavior. It's like a challenge that is posed to your value, for example. And I don't have a problem with that. I just feel that there should be room for negotiation where you come and explain because we are social beings, right? The human animal is a social being, so we have to have ways to negotiate and bounce off each other's ideas in a way that we can stand each other. And I feel that when people decide that gender can be subjectively defined, that I just woke up today and I decide that I'm gonna be a man and that's how everyone should respect it, I find that kind of thinking quite tyrannical and also even childish to a point. I imagine a 2-year-old would do that, where they lack any negotiation skills and they just do things off a whim and a tantrum. It's like, I am gay, I am male, I am female, and why? I didn't know it. They start crying, you should accept me. I feel that this is exactly what is happening in this case. So obviously, after seeing these two videos and this topic about McKenna's Chris transformation, I was talking to somebody about it, and during the course of this conversation, they mentioned something that I found very interesting and very truthful, actually. They said that they are afraid that the culture nowadays, or the value nowadays, is the value of tolerance. So we are no longer looking at the bedrock of the values that we are condoning or entertaining or encouraging. The entire value system has become tolerance, meaning that, the value nowadays is to tolerate whatever new ideologies, whatever new whims and tantrums that everybody throws into the mix, into the social scene, and we have to tolerate that. And I think that's very true, actually, because, for example, the gay community or the non-binary community, I would say, is obviously a minority in the sense that, the majority of the people in society are binary folk. So obviously makes sense why there's a big conversation around fighting for their rights and the conversation that we are having today. So when the value becomes just pure tolerance without negotiating the values that the non-binary community and all these different identities are bringing to the table, then the value becomes just pure tolerance. Humans are naturally wired to just see things mostly from their perspective and to selfishly see their way as the best way. But human beings are also social animals, and for a social animal, we have to negotiate and find ways to exist and even tolerate and stand each other. We have to find a balance to these different values. She continues to note that in this traumatic struggle to come out of the closet and identify as who she really was, she had a friend who was 50 years old who killed themselves because the parents, in his suicide note, this is a 50-year-old man, his parents and his family and the society and the people around him constantly asked him, where is she? In the idea that where is your partner and where is your female partner, which is, quite normal. You're a grown-up male, and obviously in traditional society, people will ask, where's your girlfriend, where's your wife, for example? And she continues to say, what if the parents and the people around him took time to ask her, to understand him better and ask better questions like, where is he? For example, he would probably be alive. I hope we are all on the same page, and I hope I'm speaking for everyone when I say that we are all in agreement and on the same page with preventing suicide. I mean, one suicide is too many. So I am with everybody on the suicide prevention front. I feel that the people around you and the society around you has some expectations of you, just as you have some expectations of the society around you and the community around you. And when you make some dramatic changes, and dramatic in this sense, it's something out of the norm, you owe some sort of like explanation, some negotiation, some explanation as to why you're making these dramatic changes and trying to negotiate your space in this and your identity and this transformation, for example, in your community. So I feel that McKenna's friend at 50 years old, for example, the choice to kill themselves due to that discomfort and not being asked the right question poses a bigger question to them too. In the same TED Talk, McKenna goes ahead to highlight the motto and the vision for Bold Network, which is her organization, her gay rights activism organization. She poses her vision as she wants to have a free Africa, that their vision is to have a free Africa, where every single person feels loved and protected by the society and even the laws that govern them. I have no problem with this. However, this sounds to me as a challenge. She poses a statement of challenge to the government and even the societal values. She says, without any accountability, without negotiating my space in this society, I expect to be treated a certain manner. Without negotiating my space, without fighting for my space, I want to be treated with love and accepted as who I am, regardless of how the society feels about it, and the government should just bend to this particular will. Subjectively, I feel that I'm a certain kind of person. Subjectively, I feel that I don't identify as a socially normal binary gender, and I should be accepted as who I am. I understand that lately we are very obsessed with the idea of freedom. So in the spirit of fighting for freedom and freedom to be whoever we want, and in fact, the idea of freedom, I think in excess really does not, the more options you have, the more you have to pick from. I don't think that really gives you freedom. I think that gives you anxiety, if anything. Picture this. You're walking in a mall, for example, and you're trying to buy coffee, right? And there's 10,000 different types of coffees in 20 aisles. So you have 20 aisles, and all these different aisles have 10,000 different types of coffees. That's a lot of freedom and a lot of choice and a lot of options to pick from. But from a realistic, logical manner, I don't think that gives you freedom, really. I think that gives you a lot of anxiety and confusion. And I think this is the direction we are heading, where we put, where we say that, okay, we can subjectively choose to be who we are. And obviously, I mean, yeah, we can, but then it has to be put on our stand, on a scale of the values and the effects and the side effects and the choices that we're making. And if there's even a deeper underlying issue than there already is. Can you imagine if rapists and people who maybe serial killers, for example, obviously we all socially accept that murderers, serial killers, rapists have some interesting values, but not socially accepted values. So what if these people came around? And I'm not trying to compare, of course, that being non-binary is the same as being a rapist. Absolutely not. I'm trying to say that what if everyone had so much freedom to be who they are, that serial killers, for example, would come around and say, okay, I just identify as a serial killer and I feel strongly in my blood that this is who I am and I have to, and you have to love me as who I am. I believe who you are is subject to criticism. Who you are is subject to socialization and social and tests, and even tests to social acceptance. If you intend to live in a social setting, for sure, you have to negotiate your space. I think refusing to justify the claims of who you are beyond reasonable doubt is quite tyrannical and even narcissistic, actually. And also the refusal to be questioned about the choices or these dramatic transformations and changes that people are making every day is quite narcissistic. So imagine this, you go out on a date, for example, and I see it a lot, actually. It's like, I'm a king, I'm a queen, and you have to treat me like one, you have to treat me like a king, right? And I think obviously any logical person would ask, okay, so what characteristics of a king do you have? Do you own a kingdom? Okay, no, okay. But I still should, you have to negotiate. I can't help but feel that conversations like this are curated to capitalize on the gender confusion around young people, and also to influence to a certain degree without any negotiation whatsoever that gender dysphoria and gender confusion is just normal. I don't think it is. And in this case, for example, for you to be integrated in a society and for your values to be integrated in a society, you have to negotiate your transformation in a social setting, a family, for example. And you have to back this up. And if you fail to do that, then you're forcing people to accept your subjective view of yourself in a very hedonistic manner. Now, that aside, when we go deeper into the world of the current gender dysphoria and gender transformation, it gets deeper than just the psychological confusion, and it goes into surgical and even hormonal replacement to completely change your gender. In the first world countries, the gender-affirming rhetorics are completely blowing up, and in my opinion, completely blowing up out of proportion. I was watching a video by Jordan Peterson, who I love. I am obsessed with this man. I was watching a video online about people on hormonal replacement medicine. So if you're a woman, for example, and you feel that you're a transgender and you want to change into your rightful gender, which is a male, you're put on, for example, for me, if I wanted to be a male, I would be put on estrogen blockers. Estrogen is the hormone that my body naturally produces that makes me biologically a woman. And I would be put on estrogen blockers. And also now I'm not very good with exactly all these medical terms, but I understand that then I would be replaced with testosterone, which is the natural hormone in a male's body that produces the hormones that predominantly makes the male or biologically a man. So what we're doing is introducing a completely foreign hormone, and it's actually very easy to get in these fast forward thinking countries, and it's very easy to get. You just walk into a clinic, for example, you're a disturbed teenager with maybe a bit of identity crisis, which is very normal in the sense that it's such a phase. It's like puberty, and from what I understand is that you will probably need some clinical therapy, some proper therapy to really identify if you have a real gender dysphoria or gender crisis. But this is not the case in these fast forward countries nowadays. In these fast forward countries lately, you just walk into a clinic or a hospital or whatever they are called, and you can be easily put on these hormone blockers and testosterone 30 minutes into consultation. And this is even very much supported by the government. There's so many movements, and gay and gender equality and gender non-binary and gender freedom and gender fluidity activism and movements, such that it's now completely seeped into slowly being integrated into the society as something normal, such that even the medical professionals don't have such a big choice. I understand that in the medical front, when somebody, a child maybe, or somebody comes to you and says they identify as a certain gender and they feel trans, you start the treatment. You have no right to oppose. You have no right to deny these claims. You have to start with the conclusion, right? I wonder if that's how it works in any kind of medical field, really, where you start with the conclusion that, okay, in any kind of diagnosis, you start, okay, you are gay, you are trans, so let's start there. There is no diagnosis, so we start treating this disease backwards, right? So it's, okay, you're gay, we accept that, so we start putting you on hormone blockers, we start putting you in dresses. Some people even get, what is it called? Gender reassignment surgery, bottom surgery, mastectomy, right? It's pretty scary if you ask me. I don't even know how we ended up here, really. So we were discussing this topic, like I said earlier, with somebody, and they were trying to give me an example of what happens when male bodybuilders get on steroids. Obviously, it's common knowledge that steroids have very detrimental side effects on the people who use it. And if you understand a little bit about steroids, then you know that it's overhyped, to put it in layman's, a very overhyped chemical production of what is already the male occurring hormone, testosterone, in males. And so if the introduction of this naturally occurring hormone, an excess of this naturally occurring hormone, is this deadly and detrimental to the male's or the human's health, when it's already something that the body is accustomed to, testosterone in general, and the introduction of the chemical version of it and more of it is this deadly and detrimental, what exactly or to what extent is the introduction of the exact opposite of this chemical? Let's start there. Very foreign. And not only is it foreign in terms of the content and what it's made of, it's also very foreign in the body that it's being put into. So if I'm introducing testosterone or this unnatural foreign hormone in my body, what side effects does that even have? I don't think there's even a conversation about it. No one even talks about, is it cancerous? Of course, I've seen a few videos where it says, there's a lot of information lately online where it says that obviously the introduction of this can cause, we already understand, or I would like to say, I already understand that it causes a lot of psychological, it's already a psychological problem somebody has. So away from that, this gender reassignment and hormone replacement procedures and surgeries already cause a psychological harm. Not only do they do that, they also cause a very physical harm by the idea of introducing completely foreign hormones in a certain body. It's like taking a giraffe and trying to turn it into a lion. Maybe it might work, but I don't really think it would be a fully functional lion. We continued to have this conversation, and they mentioned that due to the fact that the medical industry, for example, has never exactly created the human body from scratch, it would be fair to say that nobody, of course, in the medical industry or even who's discovered on Earth so far, who exactly knows the perfect inner workings of the human body. So even the medicine that we take, for example, let's say pain relievers, something that you take now, I think the research is made up to the immediate side effects that you have once you take this pain reliever, or once you take certain medicine, they'll tell you, okay, once you take this medicine, it's gonna cause some pain relief, but it could also cause you a stomachache in the next 72 hours, in the next 5 days. But it's not a conclusive explanation. There's no conclusive research on what it does to the psyche, what it does to the rest of your body over years, because the human body is not really fully understood. And he went ahead to say he feels that it's about 10%. The medical industry understands only about 10% of what the human body, or how the human body, the bedrock of the human body, and how the human body really works. It's very interesting, right? Because that's not very much to work with. So we're constantly the guinea pigs. This is not to blame anybody. I think the medical industry would be, so to speak, doing the best they can, or any scientists or any healers, traditional spiritual healers, doing the best they can. And at any one point, we should realize that it's an ongoing experiment up to only God knows when. So I wouldn't be jumping onto this trendy topics and all this. It's very hard to even realize that it's a choice that you're constantly making. This is to say that when it comes to issues such as this that influence on the social structures and the social values and norms, it should be up for debate and questioning. It shouldn't be a topic that demonizes people who disagree or people who see a different perspective or a different side to some of these topics that we are easily jumping on. And I also think that when it comes to a crisis or identity crisis such as gender dysphoria, it would be very beneficial to take a deeper dive as to what the root cause of that would be. Because I believe that an identity crisis is a bit more of a mental state and confusion, and you could easily get help with that via therapy. I understand, of course, especially for younger people. Even when I was a teenager or maybe towards my late teens, I was quite bi-curious, right? And I can separate that with sexual orientation being very different from the biological sex and identity, for sure. And I feel that this is just different levels and stages that children or young people or anybody for this matter should be guided through objectively, not just trying to jump onto the trendiest, the most trendy, the most popular thing at that time, or the most popular thing to do at that time. Because I mean, down the years or down the line, I'm afraid that from the videos I've even watched or the little research I have done, I've seen a lot of regrets down the line, especially, of course, for people who go all the way down the rabbit hole to completely, physically, permanently change their gender. So I think that apart from jumping on the most popular topics and trying to capitalize on this confusion, we should try to remain objective to what really matters and even what the root cause of some of this identity crisis could be. So I was reading about this popular psychologist called John Money, who is also a sexologist, who introduced the idea or shed a lot more light, almost introduced actually terms like gender role and gender orientation, and who was sort of like the first pioneers of non-binary and breaking out of constrictions of, biological sex and social definition of male and female. So, I mean, you should look into that, but to cut that short, when you go deeper into the family life of John Money, you would understand that he had a lot of trauma growing up with his violent father, and he even at some point quoted saying that he didn't want to be identified with that vile identity of a male because the male figure in his life was quite abusive. So obviously you see that the problem lies mostly on this kind of traumas, and of course, the story about John Money gets darker because he performed some crazy experiences. There's a few allegations of sexual assault on the twins that he claimed to be his successful experiment on that front, but obviously it wasn't. There was a lot of dark developments when the twins grew up, and they were saying exactly what John Money was doing to them. And obviously the twins, it was such a tragic ending. The twins died and killed themselves. It was just a lot of traumatic events, very tragic traumatic events followed after that. Anyway, I would rather not go deeper into that, because then I would be steering off too far the discussion today. But I would say that obviously that shows you that there's maybe more of a deeper rooted issue that may manifest itself this way. And I'm not saying that there's no gay people or no lesbians, or that it's not real and it doesn't happen. I just think it's some kind of temperament. I do have friends who are male for sure, but they have a very feminine temperament. They enjoy people more than things and cars. They're more creative. They enjoy flowers and they're more emotional. They're more into creative arts and cooking and putting on makeup on themselves and even sexually, of course, attracted to other males. I would say it's more of a temperament issue than it is a gender issue. They're still male, right? And the vice versa is true. So this brings me to the end of today's discussion. I would very much appreciate hearing your thoughts, reflections. Please do hit the subscribe button, do hit that like, and I will see you on the next video. I love you and good luck. Happy May, by the way. It's May 1st, right? No, it's May 2nd. It's my birthday month, Girl, I feel like I'm going through my Saturn return right now. But hey, bring it on. Okay.